Hello there, my name is Stuart Wilson. Welcome to a director's commentary of my final A2 Media trailer, Fatal Injustice. Grab some popcorn, get cozy, let's begin.
My name is Ethan Leopard. 3 years ago I left the Secret Service for a life in the countryside with my wife and daughter. 3 years undisturbed. 3 years without a mission. Until now.
Alright, so that was the first 30 seconds of my trailer. I'm now just going to run you through it in a little bit more detail. Okay, so I've started off my trailer with a green band trailer card, which you'll find at the beginning of any trailer that gets released. This is a convention of trailers, so I've used it to make mine a little bit more professional and realistic. Next, I've put in my own production company logo. I've called mine Big Boom Productions to kind of go the action genre. I've put flames over the text in After Effects to, again, link with the Big Boom name and the action genre. You'll normally find production company logos at the beginning of any trailer, so that's another way mine is following the conventions. We then have the first shot of the trailer, which is a wide establishing shot of the main character's house. This is to set the scene for the audience. The colours in this shot are warm, to show that his life is happy, and I've even included a little lens flare in the top left to further emphasise this, which I added in digitally. Next, I cut to an extreme close-up of someone filling a cup of water from the tap. Again here, the colours are warm to continue this sense of happiness. A long wide shot showing the back of the main character as he looks out of a window then appears, to show that he lives here and he is appearing thoughtful. A voiceover then begins here from the main character in which he explains that his name is Ethan and he used to work as a spy. We then cut to a slow zooming shot of Ethan's face as he continues his voiceover and explains a little bit more about his backstory and his new family. A white flash then brings us into a montage showing his family as the voiceover continues. Originally I had planned to have his little girl come up behind him as he picks her up to show his family side, but I was having problems with the height of the actor and making her look a lot younger, so I decided to go for a montage instead because A, I didn't have to worry about height issues with my actors, and B, it was just a lot quicker and simpler to show the family side of his character through a montage. If we head back to the beginning of the montage, you'll see I've put a glow on top of the image. This is to make his life seem a little bit more dreamlike, as I wanted the audience to feel that his life was perfect to this point in time. Anyway, back to the end of the montage, and we have another white flash, bringing it back to the slow zooming shot we had before with Ethan. The voiceover then explains that he hasn't had a mission for a long time until now, and I had my actor leave a dramatic pause before until now, just to give it a bit more impact. And I furthered this impact by fading it to black so that there's nothing to distract the audience from the voiceover. At this point, the atmospheric string track which had been playing over the montage has faded out into silence. This creates some tension and suggests to the audience that something big is about to happen. Let's watch the next 30 seconds of the trailer, then I'll take you through that in a bit more detail.
Hello?
Ethan, we need you back.
Ethan, we need you back in the team.
You think I can just forget what happened?
I'm not asking you to forget! Damn it, Ethan. We're talking about a threat on a global scale, larger than anything we've ever seen before. All the largest countries in the world, reduced to rubble if you don't just join us.
Okay,
So here we start with an extreme close-up of Ethan's phone as he gets a call from an unknown number. As soon as the shot comes on, I've put a drum hit to give it much more of an impact. I've also added the sound of a telephone ringing to correspond with what we're watching. I then cut to a medium shot of Ethan picking up the phone and then looking worried after hearing who's on the other end. At this point, I didn't want to make it obvious to the viewer who's on the other end of the phone, so that they'd want to watch on and find out. So I left it silent as opposed to putting a telephone effect to show who was on the other end. I put a crescendo of strings at this point to suggest that something big's about to happen, which is very common in action trailers as they're very big on building tension. It then cuts straight to black as another drum hit plays, which is very shortly followed by another drum hit. This is slowly building a fast pace, which is very common in action trailers as there's a lot to get through and they like to keep a quick and fast fluid pace. On this second drum hit, we're thrown straight into this shot of the MI6 headquarters in London. I couldn't actually get a chance to go and film on location at MI6, so what I did was take an image of it from Google and then take that into After Effects and animate some clouds in the background and some shadows on the building to make it look more like a video instead of a picture. Personally, I think the final result's pretty convincing. We then cut straight into a conversation between Ethan and another man who is actually his ex-commander at MI6. The shots are all medium shots and they cut pretty quickly, which helps to add to a faster pace. As well as quick cuts, I've used a fast percussion track in the background to help add to this fast pace. The conversation is mainly just Ethan's commander telling him about a new threat they found and then asking him to help them. And obviously that's a big dilemma for Ethan because he's got a new family and everything and he's going to have to just leave that behind to go help them. So I've shown this for a big pause at the end before he makes his decision, but ultimately he says yes, and hence we have our action film. I also just want to talk about the colour in these shots. I've tried to make it as dull and grey as I can to show that it's more serious at this point in the trailer. So there's lots of whites, blacks, dark blues and greys, which has created a big contrast from the warm colours at the beginning and is showing the movie progressing into a more serious tone, as you would expect from a typical action film. So let's now take a look at the final 45-second montage that finishes off the action trailer.
My God, it's a pattern.
Get out of the house! Now! Run!
I don't care where he is. Find him. Kill him.
They've begun the attack!
Okay, so there is a huge amount to talk about here, so I'm going to break it down into a few easy sections to talk about to make it a little bit easier to understand. So these will be the music, the titles, the colouring and effects, and anything else. Alright, so let's talk about the music. I made this track in GarageBand, and what I did was bring together firstly some loops which I found online of drums and bass, and then an orchestral track which I have from a CD already called Pro Scores, which is basically just a big collection of royalty-free cinema music. So let's just have a quick listen to a snippet from the track. Okay, so firstly you'll notice that I've tried to create quite an upbeat song with easy to hear beats. This is so that I can make the title slam down on each beat, which would make the whole trailer flow a bit more and help maintain a fast pace. You'll also see that I've tried to mix a traditional orchestral score with a more robotic sci-fi dubstep track. This keeps my soundtrack up to date with the more modern electronic soundtracks we find in action films nowadays, but it's also paying respect to the old school orchestral soundtracks that made the classic action film so great. Alright, so I've tried to make each of the titles exactly the same to add some kind of continuity to the trailer, and I've done this by keeping the same font, the same colours and the same textures on each title. I've made the titles in 3D, which is very conventional of action films, as they always like to have them big and grand and standing out. And I've added a metallic texture to kind of go with the spy feel and the more electronic feel of the soundtrack. The only title which is actually any different is this one, the main one, which is a bit red to make it stand out. I've added smoke, sparks and a lens flare effect on After Effects to make it look a lot more exciting. And I also feel like the blue lens flare actually adds to the electronic feel of the soundtrack and also the spy feel of the whole storyline. The final title card is actually a credits card which shows everyone involved in the production. You'll find one of these at the end of every trailer ever made, so this is a convention which I kept to make my trailer a bit more realistic. So now we'll move on to the colouring and effects in the montage. Okay, so you'll notice that there's a lot of different colouring and effects throughout the montage, I wanted to have a variety of colours because each shot would be taken from a different point in the film. So you notice that some shots are colder and some are warmer, like this one in the car here, for example, and this one of his finger running along a map. With shots that included effects like fire and explosions, what I did was bring up the oranges and the reds of those shots just so that the fire is a lot more vivid and extreme, which makes the situations that Ethan finds himself in that much more exciting. The majority of the outside shots, like this one of him outside by the mountains, I've tried to keep cold by bringing up the blues and colours like that and the whites, just so that it has a lot more contrast with the warmer shots and makes it seem like there's a lot more locations and settings that Ethan's put through, which is very conventional of an action film, as the lead character is usually thrown through loads of different scenarios. Alright, so that's the colouring. Let's talk about the effects in the trailer. Okay, so here's one of the shots which uses a lot of effects. This one shows Ethan at a snowy mountain range, and here's the shot without any effects.
Right. Just guys, I'm here.
Groovy. So here you can see the original shot on top and then the final shot on the bottom. You can see that I've brought up the colder colours like blues and stuff to make it look a bit more wintry. And I've added some snowflakes on top of this on After Effects to also make it colder. I wanted to also show Ethan actually at a mountain range to go with the idea of loads of different settings being in an action trailer, but obviously I couldn't go to a mountain range, so I just took this normal shot of my back garden in the snow, and then with a picture of a mountain I found on Google, I tracked it to the background and added some extra snow effects over the top to make it look like I've just taken a shot of a mountain range. I put this straight after the shot of Ethan looking into the distance, and I coloured it in the same way as the shot before to make it look like Ethan's actually there. Another shot which uses a lot of effects is this shot of the house exploding. Okay, so this shot was actually one of the hardest and longest to achieve. I wanted to make it look as realistic as possible, just to go with the big budget style of most action films nowadays. I'll just show you the original footage that I shot of the house before adding any explosion effects or anything. Okay, so as you can see, the original shot is pretty dull and boring. There's not a lot happening, and also the shot is very, very shaky. So what I did was I brought it into After Effects, and the first thing I did was stabilize the motion of the shot so that it was much more still and easier to work with. Then I took loads of fire, smoke, and smashing glass effects, and I put them into one area to make it look like an explosion, and then I moved this over onto the top left window. I then put some burn marks behind the explosion on the window surface to make it look like it had actually had a physical impact on the setting. Finally, I added a large camera shake as the explosion hits to make it look a bit more realistic, as if the camera's reacting to the explosion. It took a lot of time, but I think the final shot's pretty realistic, and it ties in with the conventions of action trailers, which usually have quite a big budget, so they like to show it off in their trailers with big explosions like this. So that's another way in which my trailer follows these conventions. There's quite a lot of clips which use effects, so instead of going through all of them in detail, which would take ages, here's a cheeky montage. Of course, I didn't have to use these effects, but I wanted to because you find them in all these high-budget Hollywood action films, so it was a way of going along with the conventions of the genre. And also, it makes the trailer a lot more exciting, and it makes it look like the film that it's advertising is really exciting and fast-paced, and there's a lot happening, which makes the audience want to watch it. Alright, so that's really all there is to talk about when it comes to my trailer and stuff. Hope you've enjoyed this director's commentary, and it's given you a little bit more insight into how I made my trailer. Yeah.